Hello, it says that I am going live. So, hi everyone, this is Kerri. How are you? Um, it's Feng Shui Friday. It's my favorite day of the week. I just want to say that today we're meeting at 1 o'clock because of some other commitments that I had earlier this morning. Usually this is going to be at 11. And next week it's going to take a pause for the Thanksgiving holiday, but it'll come back in December and it will be at 11 a.m. almost all the time. But I do schedule these events in advance, usually by Monday of the Monday before. So if you are enjoying these and if you want to pop in and watch them regularly, plan for Fridays at 11 o'clock. And also watch for the event to get posted. And you can also somewhere, I don't know where it is in this new setup that Facebook has, but often you can ask to get notified when I am going live, because maybe I'll be popping in here other times too. And if you want to see my messages, you can certainly do that. So first, I just want to say, please let me know if you're watching. Say hello in the comments and let me know where you're watching from. I am definitely trying to reach newer audiences, and I would love to see where people are coming from. I also want to say, if you're listening in and you think somebody would benefit from what I'm talking about, feel free to tag them and invite them to come and see this, this also as well. Not only does that help whoever is listening, because I think that it gives them some really good insight into energy and their surroundings and some empowering tools that I share. But I also think that it's obviously helpful to the algorithm in Facebook, and it prompts Facebook to show it to a lot more people, which is definitely what I am trying to do. Hi Martha, how are you? You are watching from Ireland. Thank you for being here. So today's topic is a little, it sounds a little bit weird. I wrote it in the description. It's not a title. I can't even come up with a title for it. It's just been coming to me all week that I need to do a little chat about Feng Shui and women and the influence that our homes have over us as women, and even how as women we get ourselves really stuck in the energy. And I'm going to talk about some examples of that because it's been coming up for a lot of my clients, and that's why I'm talking about it today. So trust me, it's all going to come together. And hi Jennifer, how are you? Hey Nicola, it's great to have you here from Idaho. I will be answering questions at the end too, so if you have a question about something going on in your home or workspace, you can go ahead and post it in the comments and I will be sure to answer it before I go. So what I first wanted to say is I think that women are a lot more, I mean, this may be biased to say, but I think women are a lot more attuned to the unseen energies that are around us. And so we might even be influenced by them a lot more. I think men can kind of tune out the mass that's around you, or the clutter that's around you, or the energy that's flowing in a harsh way a little bit better than we can. And maybe they're not quite as influenced. I think they are influenced by it, but they just don't pay as much attention to it as we do. And I would say that I think that that's kind of part of, I want to say training, that's not the right word, but you know, we've kind of been brought up that way, that our homes are a big part of women, big part of our identity. And I think back to, you know, my first apartment when I was living on my own and just, you know, decorating my space on my own and setting it up the way it worked for me and putting the things in it that I loved, and how good it felt and how excited I was to do that, and how different an experience that is to a couple years later when I was doing it and I had to accommodate my husband's wishes and what worked for him as well. And then even a few years later when I had to accommodate my kids and making it a kid-friendly space. And, you know, I went through that process, and maybe if some of you have been through this as well, you certainly raise your hand and let me know. But been through that process where all of a sudden one day I realized this is not the house I wanted. This is not the way I wanted things to be. This doesn't feel the way I thought it would feel when I was, you look in those magazine pictures and everything looks so beautiful and the women look so happy and the families look so happy. And then you look around your home in reality, especially when you have young kids, and it feels messy and it feels cluttered and it feels overwhelming, and it starts to affect you and how you feel, right? And I think, that's one of the things I wanted to talk to today, was how much as women, our self-worth is tied into our homes and our homemaking ability. And, the difference between me walking into my apartment when I was single and having it all be where I wanted it and the way I wanted it was so different from that time where I had this awareness after a few years of having kids, and I would walk in the door and there would be laundry there and there would be toys there, and I didn't know what to do with all of it or how to manage it all. And, it starts to eke into other parts of life where suddenly I'm not feeling like a good mom. I'm not feeling like a good housewife. I'm not feeling like a good partner. It's affecting how I feel energetically, being able to show up in my work. Our homes, there's just like this huge pressure put on us, both from within ourselves and by society itself, to have homes a certain way and to just be able to do it, just be able to take care of it and make it work. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And the other thing I want to say is that as women, we are also very, we think about everybody else's wishes and we want everybody to be happy, and we kind of think of it as our jobs to be the glue that keeps the house together and the glue that keeps the family together and the motor that keeps everything running. There's a big difference, when I was all of a sudden 5 new things every day were coming into the house that were, the kids stuff that were, little, trying to figure out where energetically or physically in your home 5 new toys from goodie bags from a birthday party would fit. As a mom and as a homemaker, it becomes your responsibility to figure out where that goes and how to take care of it and how to put it back after it's been played with, and make it all work into the whole scenario of the house itself. And then also to think through that responsibility of other people's schedules and managing that and managing other people's stuff and other people's laundry. And it's this huge, all of a sudden, this house, which is supposed to be this beautiful thing that we want to be a part of, is very heavy and overwhelming and not fun anymore. And it starts to deplete our energy and deplete our self-worth and make us feel bad about how we're showing up in the world. And that's definitely not what it should be. And so this has been coming up for clients of mine, and I've been seeing so much about the ways it's energetically the things are happening in the home that are reflecting these traits within us as women, which are causing this overwhelm and causing this stuckness and causing this inability to move forward. And I think the best way to share this is to give you a couple of examples. Hi Sandy, how are you? Jennifer says you get stuck in your house energy. Yes. Sandra Lee, nice to have you here. Thanks you guys for being here. So, here's one example. I was just recently with a client. This is a client that I've worked with in the past before, and we made some changes and adjustments. But like many of us, this year has been different for her in that all of a sudden, back in March, all of a sudden her job shifted to home, and she thought that that would be a 2-week thing. And so she set up her office on her dining room table, and fast forward 8 months later, she's still working at her dining room table, and it doesn't look like that's changing anytime soon. And she finally called me and said, I just need to make some adjustments because this is not working. It's not working for the home. It's interfering with my relationship with my partner, and I'm starting to feel really stuck, even in terms of being able to move forward in my job itself. And so we talked. She's got plenty of room in her space. It's just two people in a nice sized condominium, and the issue is that there's things that belong to her growing children, her children who don't live there really anymore. And but she didn't feel like she had permission to let those things go or to move that stuff out of the way to make room for her. So point number one, as women, we do not give ourselves real estate in our own homes to do the things that we love and to regroup and regenerate and to create space, real estate for the stuff that fills us up. We give away real estate to everybody else in the house all along, and then we feel kind of constricted and stuck because we don't have a place to work, or a functional place to work. Maybe you'll end up at the dining room table or whatever, and it works for a little while, but in the big scheme of things, it's really not supporting you in your role or in your job anymore. And then we also take responsibility for the other people's things and also for their feelings of whether or not they want it or whether or not they'll appreciate the fact that you might shift it or move it or reclaim some space from it. So Sandy says, oh my God, that's so true with you. I think this is like, seriously, I kept trying to push this topic aside this week and think about something else to talk about, and it just wouldn't go away. And so I was just like, I'm just gonna channel it and see what comes through, because I feel like women need to recognize this, and number one, hopefully be able to reclaim some space for yourself. And it, like, the stuckness in this particular situation is that she knew what needed to happen, but it meant moving somebody else's stuff and having difficult conversations with someone, and she was trying to avoid that, and that's the stuckness. Like, so it really isn't even like, it's just the physical representation of the furniture in the space is really about that stuckness of not being willing to move forward and admit that things aren't working, admit that there has to be a conversation had, and admit that somebody might have their feelings hurt because they actually don't live in the space anymore and don't don't really need the real estate anymore. But that's a tough conversation to have as an empty nesting family or empty nesting mom with kids taking off. And she was like, I kind of feel like I should get rid of it because they're not here anymore, but I also feel like it should stay because what if they need to land somewhere for a couple of weeks in between jobs or in between college and the next apartment or whatever. So as women, we take on all of these potential outcomes, and we try to like move all the puzzle pieces for everyone else, and in the meantime we're completely stuck and can't move forward. I just want to let you know that my family is bursting in the door right now from school. This is usually why these are earlier in the day, but they're trying to tiptoe in, so sorry for any distractions. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about, that number one, finding real estate for yourself and admitting that you need to have those difficult conversations or claim space for yourself, and even if that means claiming it back from somebody else who needs it. I'm just going to take a sip of water. And the other thing I would say, like the other thing that's come up, and I mentioned this last week in my talk, was about boundaries and about what you're allowing in. So, kind of there's that catch-22 where as women, we're in charge of the house, the head of the household, like making it beautiful, making it energetically supportive of everyone. And yet, if there aren't clear boundaries in place, that becomes really hard to do. And so another recent client that I had had me come in for an energy clearing to just clear out lots and lots of negativity that was building up because of things going on in her husband's business. And so he was coming home at the end of the day and really just like unloading on her about what was going on at work. And that was great for him because he got it off his chest and then he could relax. But then she was like feeling really heavy from having taken all that on and laying awake at night, not being able to sleep, and like feeling it just kind of all swirl around energetically. And so it is such a powerful thing to create boundaries between those things. And this is like a boundary within your relationship to say, I don't get to be your dumping ground for your work. You know, if you had a hard day at work, go take a walk and go burn it off, or go to the gym and exercise it out, or go meet your friend and, you know, dump it all on him. I want to be your wife, not your, you know, consultant for the business. And so, and to draw the line that you're not the one that's going to take it all on. I think women forget, like we're so empathetic that people feel like they can offload everything on us, and then we take it and then we like absorb it and we hold it, and then it affects our ability to show up fully in our parts of life, and we start losing sleep and we can't eat, or we feel heavy and stressed, and it doesn't need to be that way. So it's interesting to see how your environment, the energy of your environment, the symptom can be that there are not clear boundaries. And this is like, it's hard for you to see this. Like in my own life, like my husband, like if I were to talk to him, or if he were to hear me say, you know, I think women overthink too much, he would be pointing the finger at me in an instant saying, you overthink everything. And it's very true. In my own life, it can be hard to draw boundaries, and it can be easy for me to overthink things about, you know, thinking 5 steps ahead of why we can't move something here or do something. It's hard for me to see beyond that within my own life, but I can tell you, I can walk into somebody else's house and have a conversation with the woman of the house and know instantly that it's not just the environment, it's not just the surroundings that are the issue and the energy in the space. There's also this issue of not having clear boundaries in place, or not having had a difficult conversation. And like that's what's causing the stuckness more than the way things are set up in the space. So I hope I'm making sense here. Sandy says, your grown children's things are still in the house and they've moved out. And Martha says, it's such an emotional topic. How do you suggest having these conversations? Yeah, so I mean, I literally just had this exact conversation with my client, and it's just about, first of all, acknowledging that things are different, like they're not the way they used to be, and you don't know how they're going to be in the future. And so you need to make a call based on how things are right now. And it's just, you know, picking up the phone and like getting beyond it. It's not easy to do, but like acknowledging that it is a conversation that has to be had, and you know, explaining that things have changed. You know, 6 months ago the conversation might have been different because she didn't need or thinks she needed to create her own permanent office space within the house itself. But now, based on world events, she needs that. And so her situation has changed, and so it's about communication and conveying that to her family about what she needs to claim back. But there's just this big difference. And like, even with the woman who was taking on her husband's stuff, when I went there, I did a huge energy clearing of their space, and even set up some energetic, I'm going to call them force fields for the sake of, you know, making it easy for you to understand. But like, I created boundaries between the energy of the workspace and the energy of the house. But when I went home, I actually sent her a follow-up message saying, I want you to understand, like, imagine this, there's a force field around your house right now, and that, you know, ugly stuff can't come in unless you invite it in. So you have to draw the line as well and say to your husband, you know what, if you have stuff to unload about your work, can you do it before you get home? Or can we go for a walk and talk about it there, and then we'll, you know, do some personal energy clearing before we go back into the space, so that we can keep that space sacred. And and not let it get depleted by all that other stuff that's going on out there. That's really, I mean, never mind having a beautiful magazine perfect home. I can tell you for sure, my home is not magazine perfect by any means, but I do think it has good energy, and I do think it has a supportive vibe, and I think it helps us thrive because of that aspect. And much of that is being aware of what we're letting in and what we're not letting in. And so, to me, a little bit of clutter and a little bit of a mess is tolerable, whereas a bunch of negative energy around a situation is not. And that's where I try to draw the line a lot of times. Let me just look at my notes. So I think as women, our homes are so interconnected with how we feel about ourselves and how able and I guess able we feel about life. It's not only us judging ourselves about how we're showing up just by looking around and seeing how our home is flowing and feeling, but it's all that pressure from the outside looking in and saying, well, you have a small house, or you have a cluttered house, or you know, have it doesn't look like the magazines, and there's all that judgment that comes from the outside world. And so we're so connected to our homes, and so to me that's why the work I do is so important. It's about helping you find the ways that you can take your power back around your surroundings and create boundaries so that you can create a space where you can thrive personally, professionally, energetically, and show up better in all the other parts of your life. Because I remember when my kids were little and I was going through that time where I was adjusting to being a new mom and trying to figure out how to manage the home and the stuff and the schedules of all the other people, and realizing that as a woman my role had shifted and I was responsible for a lot more than just me now. That was a big adjustment, and there was that point where I was feeling really bad about how I was showing up and looking around and judging myself and judging my worth because I wasn't able to manage it. And for me at that time, it was clear that I either had to leave the situation, which wasn't really what I wanted to do, or change it. And the way I changed it was by putting boundaries in place and saying, we're not going to take home every single or hold on to every single party favor that comes in our direction. And we're not going to buy every new thing that needs to be bought because I cannot manage it and it falls on me. Like ultimately, like that was what the law that I laid down at the time was, I get the final say on whether or not something comes into the house, because ultimately it falls on me to find a space for it and to keep it clean and to keep it dusted and to to make sure that it gets put away at the end of the day. And I am not able to do it for all of these new things that are coming up. And so, for me, that was where the drawing the line was. And I think I've maintained that back and forth pretty well through the years. And I see that it's something that I'm always seeing within my clients themselves, is that they are not only struggling about the physical space, but they are feeling the implications of their space, and how it's making them able to show up fully or not in the world. That one client who was feeling stuck at work, it was literally a simple, like when I walked in, I knew exactly what needed to happen, and that she needed to have those conversations and decide which of those other big pieces of furniture could be released that weren't being used anymore. They were literally collecting dust. But once she had permission to let them go, and to have the conversations about letting them go, she was on fire after that. I mean, I've gotten like 6 text messages from her this week saying, I'm so excited, this is going to move here. And, so we have a plan, and the plan right now is just simply, figure out which things can go so we can make some space. And then the next step is, figuring out which space we're going to use and how we're going to set it up to support you in your work. And it's when you're sitting in that space in the middle of the muck and you can't see which step to take first, or to where to start, that it becomes so hard. And that's where I get stuck in my own life. But when I come in for somebody else, it's easy for me to see, and it's like, of course, this is the first thing we have to do. And then we can decide which space to use based on which piece of furniture is able to be released. So it's just a powerful thing. I think if you're just aware, what I want you to know today is to just be aware of how your surroundings are influencing you and either keeping you stuck somewhere or making you feel bad about how you're showing up in all the parts of your life, or even helping to propel you forward, right? Maybe they're being very supportive for you right now based on where you are. But there is a way to take your power back around it. And sometimes it's not just about moving furniture, it's about realizing that there's a difficult conversation to be had about wanting to move the furniture, right? And allowing yourself to have that conversation and not avoid, and to like just admit that you get to have some real estate, and you're worth the having some space and having a say in how the house, how much weight of the house falls on you. Does that make sense? I hope I'm making sense here. So I would love to hear your comments on that. If you have any questions, about your specific space, maybe there's a place in your life or your home or your office that you're feeling stuck in, put it down here in the comments, and I will take a minute to see if I can help you look at it from a different perspective, or see what the next step would be for you. And I will just keep chatting in the meantime. It's powerful stuff, and Feng Shui isn't just about like, what I want everyone to know is that we're energetically connected to our spaces, and that our surroundings are this energetic extension of what's going on inside of us. And so when we're not having the difficult conversation, or we're not drawing the line in the sand, and that creates kind of turmoil within us, that's when it gets reflected in the outside environment. So a lot of times that stuckness that we feel like things aren't flowing or things don't feel right in the space, it's really just reflecting back to us what's going on within us and inside of us. Or it's almost like a signal that something needs to shift or change, and it's time to do something different. It's time to show up differently. And I remember, I'm going to take a sip of water first. The time that I described when I was a new mom, I remember thinking for days, like, if I say that I'm drawing a line in the sand and stuff can't come in unless I say it can because I can't handle it, my husband's going to have a fit, and the kids are going to be sad and disappointed. And so it's easy to start overthinking it and thinking far ahead and setting up these expectations of what is going to happen. And actually, it wasn't what happened at all. I said it out loud. I had the conversation, and my husband was like, of course we will support you in that way. Of course we want you to be happy. Of course we don't want you to be overwhelmed. And of course we don't need all that junk anyway. So it was, I was really creating the, thinking ahead and thinking about what might go wrong, or how I might be disappointing people, and in turn not giving myself what I needed to be supported. And so, but it's interesting how when you stop looking at it that way and you decide to show up differently and speak your truth and say, this is what I need, that everything shifts. Like it's like an energetic, like right there in that moment is this energetic shift. That client that I was talking about, who was having all of her husband's work stuff come in and energetically really feel heavy, and she was taking on all of that. Before I even sent her that email, or we had a conversation in her space, and it was a long drive home, and I sat down and got involved with my family, and then sent her an email later on. And before I had even sent that email out, I looked and she had sent me an email saying, I already had a conversation with my husband about it, and he's totally on board with it, and he apologized profusely for unloading on me and didn't realize how much it was affecting me and my energy and my ability to show up. And he, is really fully on board with making that shift. So it's powerful. Sandra Lee says, your home is still set up the same as it was when the kids were still at home. I feel like I'm the keeper of things that are no longer part of my life now. 5 kids. Yes, yes. And so so we recently, my father passed away in the summer, and my sister and her kids had lived there. And so my sister was cleaning out a lot of things that were not hers. They were her sons and her daughters, and trying to figure out where things would go. And she literally couldn't make the call on things that were not theirs. And they are off busy living their life and, doing what they do. They're working full time, and they're like all of the things that she was thinking they might want, like, old yearbooks or, jackets from their sports that they played. And she was afraid to throw those things away because she didn't know how important they were to them. And I'm kind of in the middle, right? On the one side, I'm asking them, do you want this? And they're saying no. And I'm relaying back to her, they don't want it. She literally couldn't bring herself to let it go. Like, she couldn't be the one to cut the cord on it because it wasn't her stuff. And they weren't taking responsibility for it. And so ended up being this really complicated situation where literally now there are boxes in storage that just weren't dealt with because she didn't want to be the one to make the call, and they didn't want to, take ownership of it either. It's such a hard thing to draw the line and to figure out where it is. I would say, Sandra, to just start, first of all, just become aware of it. Just be aware of it without being emotional about it. Like, don't get angry about it or upset about it, but just be aware of how much real estate you're, giving up to them who aren't there anymore. And also how much responsibility you have to take care of stuff that isn't yours to take care of. And notice how that impacts you and influences you and drains you and depletes you, or maybe it fills you up in some way. Maybe it serves a purpose for you in some way. But just the awareness of it and noticing it and paying attention to it and allowing some resolution to come in, like noticing what conversation might need to be had and noticing where you need to draw the line and say, you know what, I'm ready to downsize, or I am giving you a month to think about it. I'm going to send you a bunch of pictures. You tell me whether you want it or not. Or even saying, you know what, I'm not taking care of this stuff, but you need to plan to come home for a week in December, and you need to clean it out. And if you don't, I'm going to just have somebody take it. So, so many hard conversations, and the way that it gets resolved is different for everyone. And I would talk to you a whole lot about what was going on to know the right way to encourage you to move in that direction. But those are just a couple of ideas, and it would probably be a lot. We would be able to come up with a lot more appropriate plan for you if the full story were there for me to have and to help you with. Sandy says, I do that too because you feel like it will come back at you when the stuff is gone. Yeah, I know. Like, it's hard to take responsibility and let go of something for someone. But I do think that if you give them enough notice, it's about communication, right? And letting them know, I'm not taking care of this. First of all, drawing the line and saying, I'm not taking care of this anymore. I've done it for, 3-4 decades, and I'm not doing it anymore. You need to take responsibility for it, and if you're not going to, by this date, I'm just going to let it go, right? And I think it's really unfair because I saw how my sister got, she got strapped with it because they weren't taking responsibility for it either. And so it wasn't good, but it's funny how the stuff can be this, like, the stuckness in between the relationship itself too. So it's interesting to think about. Yeah. It's complicated, and I think as women, we are so interconnected with the home and with being a homemaker and with being the caretaker that we end up getting really saddled by the weight of all of this stuff. And also, we get the short end of the stick when it comes to having real estate and space and time to do the things that we want to do. And so, I don't know, that's why I do what I do, because I can see the relationship between your environment and how you're feeling about yourself and how your relationships are working and what's not being said. And I think that there's so much power in being able to look at it from this perspective and shift it from this perspective. So I love this work that I do, and I think it's very powerful in allowing you to reclaim your to really harness the energy around you. And I think that's the problem, is that a lot of the stuff that comes into our homes as women, as moms, is that it isn't our stuff, but it's still depleting us and draining us and taking up our energy in some degree. And so finding the place where you can kind of either protect yourself from it in some way, or release it so that it's not weighing so much on you, and claim your own space. Like, we just don't give ourselves space at all to do the things that make us feel good, or that we love to do. So yeah, it comes up all the time. So I do this for women who are just saddled with their house and feeling overwhelmed and stressed and challenged and uninspired by their space, you know, and then you look in the magazine and you're like, oh, I wish my house was like that. It doesn't have to be like that. It's not about the physical aesthetics of the space. It's really about the energy and about it draining you and depleting you and overwhelming you and getting you all caught up in your head so that you can't move forward with an idea or a plan, because there's too many people to please and too many things or possible scenarios to think about happening. So it's really interesting. Anyway, go ahead and ask if anybody else has a question. Go ahead and post it here. I do want to say that there's lots of ways to work with me one-on-one. I have, if you want to just get started with Feng Shui, I have a Bagua mapping session, which is really low priced, and you get a little bit of time with me to understand the energy map of your home and how you can utilize that to kind of enhance different parts of your life using your home. There's also packages to work with me with Feng Shui and energy clearing, and to really make a strategy for you within your own space. Maybe it's for reclaiming space, maybe it's for shifting things. If you're like my client this week and things have changed, and like for us, you know, our house back in March went from, you know, it went from me being here working my job all the time, 5 days a week, to me and my husband working our jobs and the kids at least part-time schooling. So all of a sudden it feels like the walls, just like the amount of things that have to happen within the four walls just blew up. And figuring out how to make all those new situations work really took thinking outside the box and a different stepping outside of it and looking at it from within to figuring out how to make it work. And that's what I'm doing with this client right now, is how can you create now a full-time workspace, if that's what's happened, or a full-time schooling space, or make all these new adjustments. We're going to be spending a lot of time in our homes, I think, this winter, like so much. One of the things when this quarantine or pandemic hit back in March, the thing that I kept thinking was, here in the Northern Hemisphere, thank goodness it's March, because we're heading into spring and we'll be able to go outside and we won't feel like we're stuck in the house. And now here we are 8 months later, and we're heading into winter, and it's kind of blowing up again, and it seems like we're going to be really constricted to our homes and stuck in the space. And it's really important to me, like I've definitely been doing lots of things within my house to make sure that the energy is supported and that we're able to create a space for all the things that have to happen in here now, and that the energy is flowing and shifting, so it's not feeling like we're stuck and have this incredible cabin fever for the whole entire, I don't know, 4 months of winter, whatever we're going into. Sandy asks, what would you suggest is the first step? I find myself going in a million directions and I can't begin. So Sandy, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to accomplish or, what rooms might be stuck for you, but I would say to just, like, the answer, like literally when I was on the call with my client who's trying to find room for her office, she gave me all the potential answers in her, in her call with me about what was going on. Like, it could be here or it could be here, but I can't do this because this is stuck here, and I can't do this because we haven't dealt with this yet, and this, maybe we need to keep that, like, the answer. So I would say to just get really quiet and like, don't overthink. Like, don't think 5 steps ahead. Think, what is the next one step I need to take? The one thing that I need to do. So, this client was thinking, I need to create an office. So I need to get rid of the bunk beds. Or maybe I should get rid of the bed downstairs. Or maybe we should share an office. Like, there were 5 different potential scenarios popping into her head. And I think that if you just like get quiet and think, it was obvious that no matter what any one of those scenarios were, there had to be a conversation had with the rightful owner of those things about it has to be let go of. And so that's the very first thing. It was, okay, I have to have the conversation first. And then based on the conversation, the next step is going to become clear. So like, it's that worrying 5 steps ahead about what might happen or what do I do if they say this, that stops it, like puts the brakes on it entirely. And so it becomes overwhelming and overthought, and you don't take any step forward at all. But really, once when I left there, we were like, all you have to do is, these are the pieces of furniture in question. You need to have a conversation with the people who are, with your kids about what they think is going to happen. And you need to have a conversation with your ex-husband about whether or not he's going to take any of it for them or not. And then you have the answer. And once you have that answer, you can make the next step, right? And you can figure out the next part of the plan. So I hope that helps, Sandy. And a lot of times, if there's a particular room I'm working on and I don't know what to do in it, I literally will just go in there and sit in the middle of the floor. And I'll usually do like a little meditation or get quiet, and just kind of connect to the space itself. And I might open my eyes after a little meditation and start looking around, and like things will, like, maybe this is for me, but I think this would work for you too. Like, things will literally, like, something will be brighter, or it will feel like something jumps out that is obviously out of place. And it's like, that's like my signal that that's the thing that needs to be moved. And that's the first thing I do, and I move it, And so I really believe that if you take the time to connect with your home and your surroundings, that it will speak to you and it will tell you what is the next right step. If you shut down all those conversations in your head, and if you shut down all those other people that you have to please, and all the other responsibilities and other potential scenarios, like if you can quiet your mind from all of that, you'll hear it talk to you, and it will tell you what to do next. So, and of course, I can help you with that. I do have Feng Shui and energy clearing packages. The new year is a great time. I'm actually kind of reworking one of my packages to be a New Year's package, which is really looking at your space in terms of it serving you moving forward, and also setting your home up as a vision board for what you want to call in for the next year or so. So there's lots of ways to work with me, and if you are interested in having some one-on-one support, I just encourage you to reach out to me via private message or email, and we can set up a time to chat about what is right for you. I'm going to close it up there, everyone. Sandy, thank you. Sandra, Nicola, Martha, I really appreciate you guys being here today. If you have any questions, you can always put it on here if you're watching the replay and tag me, and I will come back and answer it later on. I wish you all a great Thanksgiving. I'm not going to be here next week. Next Friday, I'm going to take off from Feng Shui Friday. I'm going to take that off. But I'll be back in December, and I really appreciate you guys being here. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.